All of her jewelry. And we don't have a lot of expensive jewelry. It's not that we're those kind of people, but it was a big deal. And it was devastating to her. I mean, it was like someone had died. She described what she was, honestly, as mourning. It was just really, really tough for her. And, you know, some of you guys are looking very judgmentally right now because you're like, dude, come on, it's a piece of metal. It's not anything. It's just a ring. It's just your marriage. Like, it's just a token. It's not, you know, your marriage is the commitment. That's what really should matter. And I agree with you. And all you ladies looking at me like really, really sad because you're imagining if that happened to you and how you would freak out. And you should just elbow your husbands because they don't have the same look on their face. But it was devastating. It made us very unhappy. I mean, we were like sad, and we were betrayed, and we were angry, and we were ticked, and like, I don't know, we kind of felt violated, and what do you do? And so we go to the hotel, and we say, hey, this is here, whatever. Oh, we have this whole scan card thing. We know who was in the room. It was one of these 3 maids. They go ask those 3 maids. And of course, they, you know, they just take this. No. Well, okay, well, that's all we can do for you, sir. And I'm like, what do you mean, torture them? Of course, I don't really want that. But we get ticked, we get upset, you know? And for Jamie, it's not the material thing. She understands that I'm still her husband and I'm still hers, and my heart belongs to her completely, even if she doesn't have a ring. And for me, it makes me feel a little nicer if I got a big diamond on there, because like all the other dudes that are much better looking and much more talented than me can just sort of like dude, she's marked, like back off, you know, step off. But for her, it was the story. It was the fact that like this is the ring that I proposed to her with. And there's this big romantic story that goes with that. It's the history, and she's like, we can't just go to Jared or something and get like a replacement ring. Is that what I'm going to look at that, and every time I look at it, I'm going to be thinking of how the story was lost, and it's cheapened, and it's just this horrible thing. Well, I get it. I get that it's a thing, and it shouldn't make us this happy or unhappy, but that's not how you and I live, is it? In so many ways, our happiness or our unhappiness is tied to our circumstances, things that happen to us, something that comes from without instead of something that comes from within, not from who we are, but from what happens to you or I, or our emotional state. And it's this external thing that we have to navigate. That's what happiness is about. It's about the stuff that we can get, or the promotion that we can land, or the relationship that we can secure, or whatever. And it's aggravating. Now, the good news in this story was that when we went back to the jeweler who had, the first ring was a custom-made ring. And it was made by this jeweler in Detroit, Michigan. He's the only jeweler that's not bankrupt in Detroit. We go back to Detroit, we fly especially there just for this. And we go talk to the jeweler, we sit him down, and I say, hey, can you make another one? He said, listen, I destroyed the mold after I made the first one. I can never make that ring again. Oh, boo, we're all sad. Everybody's so unhappy. What are we going to do? And then as we're in the jewelry shop, we're looking around, and in the display case, I look down and I see it. And 8 years ago, when I was buying the ring, I couldn't afford this one ring that I really liked. That was the ring that I thought Jamie was destined to have. It was just beautiful, but it was like way, way too much money for a 20-year-old Bible college student to afford. And so I creatively started coming up with other solutions to the problem, like, you know, let's make one that sort of looks like that. And so what I had made was sort of the imitation of this other ring. And believe it or not, 8 years later, they had the same exact ring in the jewelry case. And it was a big deal. And so I don't want to say anything, because I also see the price tag, and I know there's no way on earth that we can afford it, but you know, happiness has a price tag, doesn't it? So if I mention the story, well, then we have to buy the story. Do you understand? And not the ring, it's the story that we're buying. So I gotta like bring out all my bargaining power. So I wish, I don't have a little clerical collar as a pastor, but I wish I did in this point, because man, it would have helped. And I bring the pastor card out. I put my little 9-month-old baby on the counter. I bring my beautiful blonde wife, and I sit her and I say, cry. And we go toe-to-toe with this jeweler, and it ended up being something that we walked out of there, we could afford it, and now she got. So if you see my wife, understand that happiness has a price tag, and she's wearing it on the third finger of her hand. That is happiness, right? And compliment that ring. Don't mention the old one, because that is unhappiness. See, Jesus talked a lot about happiness too, but in a different way than you and I talk about it. It wasn't something that we can find out there in the carrot chase. He talked about a different sort of happiness. And in the opening of what's known as the Sermon on the Mount, which is maybe the most famous sermon Jesus ever preached, he gives us this collection of verses in poetic form called the Beatitudes. And in it, this word he keeps using over and over again, blessed, blessed, blessed. The probably best translation for that today would be like, oh, the sheer joy, or oh, the sheer happiness of these sorts of things. And when Jesus teaches this, he's doing something that is dramatic and unexpected because he's inverting cultural norms and he's challenging what would be the pre-understanding of his day. People came to the table